is Tinder? Tinder is the very first building block that we need to get a good fire going. Think of Tinder as the smallest, tiniest, driest, fluffiest stuff that you can find that ideally can catch a spark. Not even open flame, but if you can catch your Tinder and get it to light with just a spark from a fire steel, that's a good Tinder. So I'm going to show you guys some different types of Tinder you can use. Some of them are homemade or stuff that you can bring from home and just always keep in your pack. Others are materials that you can find in and out the forest in the Northeast here. This is by no means an exhaustive list of all the different Tinders in the area. These are just some of my favorites that I've come to like over the years, and some that are very, very commonly available and easy to find, and that I found work really, really well. So let's start out with some artificial or homemade Tinders that you can bring from home. So there are several qualities that make a really, really excellent Tinder. Of course, you want it to be dry as a bone. You want it to be nice and fluffy. You want it to catch a spark easily. But the other key is you want that Tinder, once it's caught a spark and once it bursts into flame, you want it to give off a good amount of heat and for that flame to last long enough that you can start to pile other materials onto the open flame. If your Tinder burns out too quickly, then it's not going to work very well. So as far as stuff you can bring from home, we have here cheap as free dryer lint from your dryer. So this is why they tell you that you should clear out your dryer trap from time to time. Dryer lint is extremely flammable. So this is very easy. You go down and collect some, throw it in a Ziploc bag. It's free, it weighs next to nothing, and you can keep this with you in a nice dry bag all the time. And as you're about to see, catches flame very, very easily. So as I said, we're looking for not only how easily it catches flame, but how much heat it's putting out. This one's putting out a good amount, and how long it stays lit. As you see right now, our dryer lint here stays lit for a nice long time. Definitely more than enough time that you can now start to add some birch bark or some other materials to get a real fire going. Another useful Tinder that you can easily bring from home is just some simple jute cordage. This is cordage, some little rope string that is made from natural plant fibers, plant materials. All you do is cut this into small sections and basically pull it apart until it's entirely fluffed up and soft. And once it's fluffed up like this, this makes a very nice Tinder that catches quite easily with a spark from our fire steel. Alright, so let's discuss some of the real heavy weapons, the heavy hitters of Tinder that you can bring with you. A simple cotton ball by itself will catch fire, but if we add some stuff to it, for example, simple hand sanitizer lotion, which is a good thing to have with you when you go hiking and camping anyway for cleanliness issues, but hand sanitizer is basically just a gel that's made from high-proof alcohol. So we're just going to put a little of that hand sanitizer on our cotton ball. Gonna work that in, rub it in. Get our cotton ball nice and soaked with that hand sanitizer. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna tease our cotton ball apart so that we expose those really, really fluffy bits right there. Those will help catch the flame easier. And now that that cotton ball has been soaked with the alcohol in the hand sanitizer, we have a serious Tinder that's gonna burn nice and hot, burn nice and long, and you'll easily be able to get a fire started with that, no problem. My number one absolute top atomic weapon of homemade Tinder is our friend the cotton ball again, but this time we're actually going to take some petroleum jelly, otherwise known as Vaseline. We're going to take a fingerful of that petroleum jelly, and we're going to basically work that petroleum jelly into our cotton ball, rubbing and massaging the petroleum jelly until it's all absorbed into that cotton ball. Now the nice thing about these is you can make these ahead of time. You can make a whole bunch. You can bring a little plastic container or a little Ziploc bag with several of these with you, and these are the absolute best fire starter. If you don't need to use them as a fire starter, of course, now that you have a cotton ball that's full of Vaseline, you could use this as lip balm. You could use this for chapped or dry skin. You could use this for a lot of other reasons. And then on top of that, the Vaseline actually works to waterproof the cotton ball. So if this were to fall in the water or get wet, it would actually still work as a tinder because of that Vaseline that has basically waterproofed this cotton ball. So once you get that finger full of Vaseline really massaged into the cotton ball, once again, you're going to break it apart to expose those fluffiest inner parts of the cotton ball, the nice fluffies. And with Vaseline on a cotton ball, we have made the absolute best tinder that you can bring with you into any camping or hiking trip. I've had these Vaseline cotton balls. I've timed them where they'll sit here burning for over 5 minutes. So they burn extremely hot. Dead dinosaurs burn nice and hot. They burn extremely hot. The flame lasts a very long time. Way more time than you need to start piling on birch bark or small dry twigs or other things to get a fire going. So if you want an absolute top foolproof tinder to have with you in the wilderness when you go hiking or camping, bring along some Vaseline cotton balls. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how some natural tinders that you can find out in the woods and out in the forest will light from our fire steel. Alright, so these are the seed heads from the phragmites plant. This makes excellent tinder. Now it's important for the phragmites to be nice and dry. If you've just been after a rainstorm, unfortunately this won't work as a good tinder, but as long as you have a good dry phragmites, this is something that's going to catch very easily. As you can see, one straight. It's going to burn nice and hot, has enough material to burn nice and hot, and as you can see, the flames last a good long time. So this is an excellent natural tinder as long as it is currently dry. The nice thing about that though is even after it rains, they're way up high in the wind, so they actually get hit by a lot of wind and a lot of sunshine, so they can dry out pretty quickly after a rainstorm and work as a good tinder for you. Alright, so birch bark, the gasoline of the forest. Birch bark has an oil in it that is extremely flammable. It doesn't really matter if it's white birch, river birch, you name it, pretty much every birch species has this flammable oil. So even when the bark is down, you don't need to take it from a living tree. When the bark is down, even if it's starting to rot, even if it's starting to get a little wet and moldy, it's actually still flammable. The oil that's in the bark keeps it flammable even after rainstorms, even after it gets wet. So this is a great fire starting tinder to find out in the forest. Alright, birch bark is something that I normally like to add to a flame once I've gotten a flame going using another tinder. Basically, the birch bark has an oil in it that's like gasoline. I mean, once you catch a little bit of flame on this, it goes up very quickly. It's an excellent addition to tinder after you get the tinder going to really kick that fire into high gear. However, you can actually process birch bark using a pretty sharp knife, and you can actually process into something that can work as a tinder by itself, taking a strike from our fire steel. So I'm basically going to just scrape up, put my knife at a 90-degree angle, and we're going to scrape down this birch bark, trying to get a collection of little curls. So if we have enough of this curled up birch bark that we scraped with our knife, and if our fire steel method is good, if we have some practice with our fire steel, we can usually get a fire going from this birch bark that we scraped up right here on the bark itself. There we go. This method definitely takes some practice though, so I don't necessarily recommend this as my ultimate natural tinder, but as you can see, once you get that birch bark lit, it just keeps going and going. This stuff lights really fast, it lights really hot, really strong, and this is an excellent way to get a fire started as long as you practice and figure out how to scrape that bark out the right way. Nice soft little curls, and if you practice your fire steel so you can really direct those sparks at the curls that you made, then it becomes an excellent tinder all by itself. Alright, so my all-time favorite natural tinder is something called Fatwood. Fatwood is pine wood that's been basically soaked through and impregnated with pine sap. You find it from dead pine branches, the lower branches of a pine tree that are already dead. You look for ones that basically have dried sap kind of leaking out from the side of the branch. You're looking ones that have that as a good sign that probably has some good fatwood. And then once you break off the branch, what you're looking for is that outer layer that hopefully you see right there that almost looks waxy. It almost looks like it's animal fat. There's a distinct color difference between the center of the wood and the outside of the wood. Basically, that outer wood is completely soaked in pine sap, and pine sap, pine resin, is extremely flammable. So if we can actually use our knife and process this fatwood into dust, into shavings, those shavings are an excellent tinder. And the best part about this is, even if it's been raining for several days in a row, this fatwood on the inside of the dead pine branch is still going to be protected from the rain. It's still going to work even after a lot of rain. So this is an excellent tinder. So if the back of your knife is sharpened, if you have a sharp edge on the back, you can actually just scrape down the outside of that fatwood. You're looking to make tiny shavings of the wood that's been soaked through with pine sap, with pine resin. If you can smell it, it smells like turpentine. It has a really strong turpentine smell to it. You do want to scrape this onto a dry surface though. If it's been raining and you scrape this onto a wet, muddy surface, you're kind of ruining the work you've done. So you want to make sure that you're directing these shavings to a nice dry surface. Alright, that's probably enough to show you. So we're going to gather up these fatwood shavings here. Going to make them into a nice solid pile. So let me go ahead and show you with the fire steel. Now remember, a good tinder is something that lights easily and stays lit and burns hot. So this meets all those criteria. This is putting off a whole ton of heat. I can barely hold my hand there actually. And as you're going to see, these shavings burn for quite a while. So fatwood shavings from a dead pine branch that has been soaked through a sap. These shavings are my absolute favorite natural tinder to get a fire started with.